Cryptid upset no one bothered to inform him of his tragic backstory. By Crimson Seekers. Pt.11. And sorry I'm late. Robin Hood. Why the fuck you all so silent suddenly? Teenage Mutant Ninja Lizard. Robin Hood. Doesn't keep Shigaraki from getting scalped. Teenage Mutant Ninja Lizard. We found a pretty promising lead on Dabi. We've just been checking it out. Robin Hood. I can't help if you all decide to ghost me. Hello? At everyone. Oh, you motherfuckers. At Mr. Sandman. You're getting scalped the second I'm out of witness protection. Chicken Little. Rumi! How did rescuing the UA kid go? Bugs Bunny. Chicken Little. He's not dead, is he? Bugs Bunny. No, the little shit is fine. Chicken Little. Okay, that's great news. Now what's the about? Bugs Bunny. Some info came up about Dabi from the League. We're trying to verify it right now. Chicken Little. Okay, you're really beating around the bush here. What the fuck is wrong? Bugs Bunny. That's kind of the problem. I'm not allowed to tell you until we can verify it, which is probably gonna take a while. I'm probably really stretching at telling you this much. Chicken Little. Am I allowed to be patched in on the case while I'm out? Bugs Bunny. I don't think they're gonna let that happen. Chicken Little. What's going on, Rumi? Bugs Bunny. Sorry, Kago. I'm really not allowed to tell you. Kago huffed, turning his phone off and tossing it onto the coffee table, leaning back on the couch. You, not anybody. Kago, contrary to popular belief, wasn't a fucking idiot. He's been on the other side of the situation before. They were worried he'd have a personal bias about whatever they discovered. His sharp eyes glanced at the calendar hung over the counter, between the living room and the kitchen. One more day until he was out of witness protection. 4 days until he was back on duty. He ignored the pit in his stomach about what everything could mean. Uncaged Bub, Ad Hawks official. Guess who just got out of witness protection? Okay, Toga said, reading something on her phone as Twice fluttered about. Compress, Kurogiri, and Spinner watching on in amusement. Dabi had no idea where the hell Shigaraki could be.
All the movies I've ever seen had something about being able to get over amnesia if you're reminded enough of what you forgot.
I don't think movies are the pinnacle of psychological or medical knowledge, Dabi commented dryly.
Well, it's worth a shot, isn't it?
Toga asked, waving her arms in frustration, cheeks puffing up into a pout. Dabi sighed and rolled his eyes, but waved his hands in a go-ahead gesture nonetheless. He heard Compress chuckle, and he shot a glare at the man, who held his hands up innocently. Toga beamed.
It turns out there's a bunch of recent articles about Todoroki Toya, and all of them think he's dead, but apparently a body was never found, so there's a chance, she said cheerily, shoving her phone in his face. Here, read and see if you remember anything.
Dabi rolled his eyes again, but took Toga's phone obligingly and began scanning the article. Who is Todoroki Toya? By Koizumi Suzu. After a shocking trial against the... Dabi huffed and skimmed past whatever the introduction was, scrolling past the first few paragraphs to get it over with faster. Todoroki Toya was the firstborn son of Todoroki Rei and Enji, otherwise known as the pro-hero Endeavor. He was born on January 18th, 2XXX. Not much is known about the first 3 Todoroki children, as they had been kept mostly out of the public eye. Todoroki Fumi, when we reached out to her for a comment, agreed to speak some of her late brother. Toya was incredible. He helped our mother raise Natsuo and Shoto, and he was my best friend growing up. He always went out of his way to make sure we were all safe and happy, and when our mother was sent away, he tried his best to fill her place, those few years until he died. Pictured from left to right. Todoroki Fumi, age 7. Todoroki Toya, age 9. Todoroki Shoto, age 6 months. Todoroki Natsuo, age 4. Picture provided by Todoroki Fumi. Dabi froze as he reached the picture. 3 bright, smiling children and a wide-eyed infant, snow-white hair with splashes of red across the board. He stared at it. Something was tugging in the back of his mind. His thoughts raced. Sho, Yumi, Nat, Kate. Toya remembered. Toya and Rumi hid underneath a table, their mother's feet walking right past as she called out in wonder. I wonder where Todoroki and Fuyumi could be, she said slowly, a smile in her voice. Toya shared a glance with his sister, the 2 of them starting to giggle. Their mother crouched down, her smiling face appearing as she looked under the table. There's my 2 little troublemakers. Come on, time for lunch, she said, scooping the 2 of them up to hold one on each hip, strong arms carrying them with ease. Toya laughed as her short white hair tickled his nose. It all came flooding back. There's a baby in Mommy? Nat asked in wonder, chubby little hands coming to rest on their mother's stomach with as much care as a 4-year-old's motor skills could provide. Toya nodded, smiling as their mother looked down at the 2 boys fondly. You were in Mommy too once, Na-chan. Nat looked up at him with big, round eyes, filled with all the wonder and innocence of the world. Really? Uh-huh. And now we're gonna have a little brother. Nat beamed up at him, before returning his awed gaze to her swollen stomach. How could he forget? Careful, his mother's exhausted voice warned him, as she gently laid the baby in his arms. Move your elbows a little. Support his neck. Yeah, just like that. Toya stared down at the tiny person now cradled in his arms, soft tufts of white and red hair sticking up from the top of his head. Blue and grey eyes blinked back up at him. He looked at his mother. His eyes are funny. She laughed, a soft twinkling noise. It's called heterochromia, sweetie. It means his eyes are 2 different colors. Oh. Toya looked down at the baby again. He's my little brother? Yes. This is your new little brother, Shoto. Shoto. Toya repeated softly, staring at the baby. After a few moments, he beamed. Hey, Shoto. I'm your big brother, Toya. I'm gonna protect you, since that's what big brothers do, he said, finishing with a note of pride. His mother chuckled. Yes, they certainly do, she said, ruffling his hair. Shoto stuck his hand in his mouth. I think he might be stupid. His mother laughed. Everything. Hi, his roommate chirped, bouncing up to him as he entered the room. I'm Hawks. I'm 13. What's your name? Toya stared at the other boy with an unimpressed look on his face. Todoroki Toya, 14. Do you have a real name, or am I supposed to believe that your parents actually named you Hawks? The boy with the bird mutation blinked and reared back slightly, allowing Toya to step around him and set his bag on the extra bed in the room. The boy started hesitantly, and Toya looked back over his shoulder to him tapping his talons. He had talons? It was actually pretty sick. Together nervously. I'm not supposed to go by my legal name. I'm not gonna tell on you if you tell me, Toya said, raising an amused brow as red feathers puffed up in embarrassment, the youngest face flushing. I'm not a snitch. The clawed fingers twisted together for a moment, before freezing and clenching around each other. The other boy's flush deepened. Promise? Yeah, I promise. Dorm secrets or whatever. What happens in the dorm stays in the dorm. The other boy stared at him for a few moments longer, before his hands clenched tightly again, and he slowly untangled them, shakily holding one out to Toya. Takumi, Kager. Takumi Kager. I prefer Kager. Nice to meet you. Toya grinned and shook the boy, Kager's, hand. Todoroki Toya. Kager beamed. Todoroki already knew the other was going to be the death of him. His head pounded. He was burning. Toya was burning. He couldn't fucking stop it. Blue flames surrounded him as he screamed. You could feel his skin burning, and he could feel himself crying, but only blood made tacky by the heat was running down his face. Toya screamed again as the fire kept licking at his body, and he could feel himself getting lightheaded. He was hyperventilating. He didn't want to die.
Dabi!
Dabi's head snapped up, meeting Toga's concerned gaze only a few inches from his face. In his peripheral vision, he could see the rest of the league, except Shigaraki, who was still off pouting somewhere, staring at him with worry. What the fuck? He asked in monotone, after a few moments of silence. Toga sniffled and, oh god, Dabi was not ready to deal with a crying person right at that moment.
You were just staring at the screen for a really long time, and then when Jin tried to get your attention, you weren't responding and...
What she means, Compress interrupted gently, putting a hand on her shoulder, is that you had us worried for a moment there. Oh, Dabi said. Not the smartest response he'd ever had. To be fair, he was still processing a shit ton of information. Hold this, he said, shoving Toga's phone back at her as he roughly stood up. The bar was silent as he took several quick strides over to the window, yanking the curtains aside and sliding the window open, sticking his head out into the alley between their building and the next. Taking a deep breath. Motherfucker! He listened to it echo slightly in the alley before ducking his head back inside, shutting the window and closing the curtain. He turned back to the occupants of the bar, who were all staring at him in shocked silence. Sorry about that. I just remembered my entire fucking life. Spinner made an odd, aborted, choking noise. Before anyone could make much more of a reaction, however, the door to the bar slammed open, and a dangerously sweet voice floated in. Shigaraki, I've come for your scalp, Hawk said, in a sing-song voice as he prowled inside. Oh, Dabi was not ready for that conversation. Whether it was because of the threat against his scalp, or because of the emotional damage, he wasn't sure. However, Twice took the option away of not talking about it, probably in a well-meaning attempt to redirect Hawks' attention from his blood loss, by shouting, Dabi's Todoroki Toya.
No, he's not.
Hawks froze, and slowly, ever so slowly, began to turn his head to look directly at Dabi, who froze in turn. It was silent for a moment. Hawks took a deep breath. Spinner. He started suddenly. Yes? The mutant in question responded quickly. Tell Shigaraki he gets to keep his scalp for another day. You, he continued, stalking over to Dabi with a dangerous look, fisting his hand in the collar of his jacket, are coming with me. Kurogiri, could you be a dear and give me a portal back to my apartment? Dabi decided he really hated favoritism, as the bartender opened a portal without question. He resigned himself to his fate as Hawks dragged him through, tossing a "thank you" over his shoulder before the portal closed. Hawks' apartment was nice, and Dabi was able to decide quickly. Open plan, high rise, one of the walls was completely made out of glass. Once that was out of the road, Dabi didn't have much choice but to focus on the dangerously calm face in front of him. Was Twice telling the truth? He asked blankly, making direct eye contact. Are you Todoroki Toya? Dabi swallowed, his throat feeling weirdly tight. Hey, Kei-chan. Dabi wasn't sure whether or not to be surprised by the punch that snapped his head to the side. You fucking arsehole! Hawk screeched. I thought you were dead! I fucking grieved over you, you piece of shit! To be fair, Dabi tried slowly, holding a hand against his stinging cheek, watching Hawks' wings stretch out and puff up in agitation. I had no idea anyone thought I died until 10 minutes ago. Shut the fuck up! I'm trying to be mad at you! He snapped. Dabi, suddenly able to recall thousands of memories of the hero he hadn't before, simply laid a gentle hand on his shoulder and guided the other over to a couch as he continued to shout profanities at him. Do you know how many times I cried over your grave, you dickhead? Too many times to be put up with all this bullshit, that's for sure. God fucking damn it. While Dabi might have more memories of Hawks, that didn't necessarily mean he knew precisely what to do at that moment. Suddenly returning from the dead because you finally remembered all of your memories after 7 years of looking and then confronting your old boyfriend wasn't really something Dabi had a point of reference for. Do you know how many fucking weird, awkward conversations I've had to have with your sister about this? Too fucking many! Could have at least told them you had a boyfriend so I didn't have to tell your entire family that shit on national television. Okay, Dabi really wanted to ask what the fuck that was about, but knew it wasn't the time unless he was feeling lucky, which he kinda wasn't. As they sat down on the couch, Hawks yelling all the while, Dabi took note of his red eyes and blotchy cheeks, and even though they weren't any tears, he knew Hawks was crying. At least they matched now, in their lack of ability to properly cry. Trying to be comforting seemed the most likely route to not getting stabbed or scalped. In one quick movement, he pulled Hawks to his chest, wrapping his arms around the other, rubbing the space in between his wings as the appendages flapped in frustration. Such a fucking asshole. Hawks' voice was muffled by his shirt. Yeah, he agreed neutrally. Hawks' shoulders began to shake. You're such a problematic dickhead, he continued, hitting his fist weakly against Davi's chest. I am. Stop fucking agreeing with me. Alright. I fucking hate you. Love you too, Keigo. And that seemed to be the final straw for Hawks, as he fell limp, wrapping his arms around Dabi and fisting his hands into the back of his shirt. Toya held Keigo close as he sobbed. He ran his fingers through the other's hair, humming a meaningless tune in the back of his throat as Keigo's chest hitched with every breath, each high-pitched, shuddering sob muffled by Toya's shirt. Eventually, Keigo slowly began to grow still. The apartment was dark by then, the sun having fallen lower and lower below the horizon. Toya worried Keigo might have fallen asleep, but he continued to run his fingers through his hair. A good few minutes after Keigo's shoulders had finally fallen still, and his breathing evened out, he slowly lifted his head from Toya's chest, his face flushed and his eyes an irritated red. He sniffled as he sat up, pulling away slightly. "Hey, buddy," Toya said, giving him a small smile. Keigo let out a startled, wet laugh as he rubbed his eyes. "Hey, hot stuff," he responded with a shaky grin. "Do you—" He cut himself off, looking uncertain. Toya laced his fingers together with Keigo's, giving them a reassuring squeeze. Do you want to be Toya and Keigo again?" he asked in a soft voice, using the hand that wasn't intertwined with Toya's to gesture between them. "Do you still want there to be an us?" Toya sighed. "I don't think we can go entirely back. We're still Dabi and Hawks." He waved lamely with one hand out the window. "But I'd like to be Toya again. With you." "Really?" "Yeah." "Okay." Keigo nodded shakily, leaning forward to rest his forehead against Toya's. Let's leave the rest of this conversation for tomorrow. I'm fucking drained." Toya laughed in agreement, and Keigo smiled. "For now," he smiled, leaning forward and pressing his lips against Toya's, who readily reciprocated the action. His head tilted slightly, and one hand tangled in Keigo's hair, the other wrapped around his waist, tugging him forward to straddle Toya's lap. Keigo shifted slightly, his arms and shoulders shifting back and his red leather jacket landing on the floor, a slight rustle accompanying the reformation of his wings. He pressed deeper into the kiss, tongue running along Toya's mismatched lips, which opened readily for him. Clawed hands dug into his raggedy coat, and Toya easily acquiesced, shrugging the coat off. Toya pulled away as his body warmed, staring into Keigo's brown eyes. "Okay, I have 2 questions if this is going where I think it's going." "It probably is," Keigo responded, a teasing smirk playing across his lips. "Great, okay. First, are you sure you want this?" "Fuck yes." "Cool, we're in agreement." Keigo laughed at him, looping his arms around his shoulders. "Second, is this a good idea?" "Probably not," Keigo admitted, though he made no effort to move. "But I'm not well known for making the best decisions." "My guilty pleasure, then." "Guilty of several crimes, yes." Toya barked a laugh at the response, Keigo grinning down at him. He quickly calmed himself before he continued speaking. "It's probably at this point I should tell you that people weren't exactly lining up to fuck rotting eggplants, so I have no idea what I'm doing." Keigo snorted, rolling his eyes. "I'm a workaholic who was just under so many NDAs it wasn't funny. I don't exactly get laid either." "Fantastic. Neither of us know what we're doing." Keigo laughed at that, before tugging Toyo up to his feet. "Come on. You've seen porn, I've seen porn. I have lube in my bedroom. We can piece it together." "Great. I love puzzles," Toya muttered sarcastically, following Keigo's lead. "Do you want to fuck or not?" Keigo asked him sharply, as he stumbled into what must have been his bedroom, going by the insanely large bed in the center. Toya didn't think you could get bigger than a king-sized bed, but apparently he was wrong. "Yeah." "Then keep the snark to yourself and strip. I refuse to have my first time feeling like some half-clothed alleyway fuck." It's spicy nostalgia, at Hawks Official. In a shocking turn of events, it turns out my therapist was right, and that facing my trauma head-on makes things significantly better. On an unrelated note, I have a pounding headache after crying for several hours last night. Lola Bunny, @MiracoOfficial, replying to @HawksOfficial. I don't know how concerned I should be about this. Do I want to know what you did? It's Spicy Nostalgia, @HawksOfficial, replying to @MiracoOfficial. Probably not. Best Genist, @BestGenistOfficial, replying to @HawksOfficial and @MiracoOfficial. Please tell me that's not code for something illegal. It's Spicy Nostalgia, @HawksOfficial, replying to @BestGenistOfficial and @MiracoOfficial. No comment. Best Genist, @BestGenistOfficial, replying to @HawksOfficial and @MiracoOfficial. Hawks! Hershey, @BanjoPicalo, replying to @HawksOfficial. I refuse to believe there's anything more chaotic than Hawks' Twitter account post-HPSC. Yasu, @ProductionPeriod, @FlyGirl2X, replying to @BanjoPicalo and @HawksOfficial. I mean, you're not wrong. Tomura wasn't really sure what to expect when Kurogiri looked down at his phone and opened a portal, and Hawks came through, dragging Dabi behind him, especially after the rest of the league's recounting of the day before. Dabi stumbled a few steps behind Hawks before being shoved onto the couch by the hero. Hawks then scanned the room, waving back at Togeron twice, before his eyes landed on Tomura, who tensed, 8 fingers tightening around his DS as Hawks stalked towards him. He wouldn't actually do it. Shigaraki, Hawks said, a dangerous smile on his face as he laid his hands on his shoulder. Tomura met the glare with one of his own. Thanks to a unique set of circumstances that isn't going to happen again, I've decided to spare you. This time. However, his smile turned sharp. You do anything like that again, and that oily rag on your head will be hung on my wall. Cool? Cool. And Hawks clapped him on the shoulder in a gesture that implied far too much familiarity, before turning and walking away before Tomura could probably respond. Stop fucking trying to threaten me! He shouted at Hawks' back, who simply made a dismissive gesture over his shoulder that made Tomura's blood pressure skyrocket. As Hawks took a seat at the bar and began talking to Kurogiri, who greeted him warmly, Tomura heard Spinner ask Dabi, Did you get laid or beat up? Yes. Okay, Hawk said, clapping his hands together as he finally got the entire league to sit down together. Since you assholes couldn't be bothered to watch the news these past 7 months. He turned on the TV, hooked up to his laptop, showing a presentation he'd spent the past several days putting together. Allow me to give you a rundown of all the bullshit you've caused. Any questions? He asked, turning back to the room after 2 hours. Silence. The league stared at the screen with wide eyes. Great! Now we can move on to what this means for you guys, Hawk said, before they could recover. Their gazes slowly turned to focus on him. There are 2 options I see for you here. Either you just continue on, start doing your villainy stuff again, or you could, well, I won't get into legalities, but while public support is high, you could probably swing getting into vigilante reform programs. That's the route I'd recommend. After a rehabilitation period, you can all probably apply for PI licenses. Or, if you really want to, UA is moved to a university format, as well as most other hero schools. So Spinner, along with Dabi, Toga, and Shigaraki, assuming you're willing to work to earn your GEDs, could apply there. Compress Twice and Kurogiri probably could as well, but you're a bit over the target demographic. You could alternatively apply for a quirk license in combination with a PI license. There's a lot more to it than that, but that route would allow all of you to continue what you've been doing, just without having to avoid the cops. You're suggesting that we turn ourselves in? Shigaraki commented flatly after a moment. Hawks shrugged. Pretty much. I can probably advocate for you guys. As the number one hero, my word carries a bit of weight. Dabi choked on a mouthful of water. Hawks felt a sense of vindictive revenge for the other that had caused him to do the same more than once, and stared at him incredulously. The rest of the league doing the same. Since when the fuck were you the number one hero? Since the last billboard. I gave you guys the Spark Notes version of the past few months. Hawks paused for a moment, thinking. The HPSC had been shut down, and its offices raided. No one had approached him about any secret mission to infiltrate the League of Villains, so it was pretty safe for him to assume it hadn't been put on any records. He might have wanted to think that this was to maintain complete secrecy, but Hawks is a realistic person. The HPSC was more than willing to throw people under the bus. He was the only person not in prison who knew about it. Though knowing Dabi was Toya made him fairly sure the other knew, or at least suspected. After another moment of thought, he decided he might as well just keep it that way. It had stopped being a mission a while ago, he knew that. He was still here, even with no one to report to. I got into this whole thing because I wanted to see what was wrong with hero society change, and I didn't see any way to do that as a hero. And I guess I was right about that much, at least. Hawks shrugged, averting his gaze from the League down to his laptop. The way things are run has been completely overhauled. The HPSC has been shut down, new regulations put in place, and heroes are working together better than ever. He looked back up at the League. I like you guys. I really do, but my goals have been accomplished. I like being a hero, and I enjoy saving people. Quirk discrimination laws have been expanded, and sympathy for villains is at an all-time high. He averted his gaze again. I like to think you're all good people. You can just become civilians if you want to, but I think you'd all make pretty good heroes. He heard a sniffle, and froze, head snapping around to stare at Toga. His eyes were watering. You mean it? She asked, trembling slightly. You really think a freak like me could become a hero? Hawks' eyes softened. Whoever told you you're a freak is a dumbass. You're a great kid, Toga. The world has just been unfairly cruel to you. I think you'd make an incredible hero. She burst into tears.